All right, it's Wednesday, December 18th, 2024, and there's a new plot to stop Donald Trump from taking office that's supposed to happen in 2 days from now, on Friday, December 20th. I just heard about this, looked into it, quickly found out that yes, it's real. In left-wing independent media, these big Dem influencers really talking about this, all stemming from this executive order that's supposed to prevent Donald Trump from being sworn in. And guess what they're planning on doing if that fails? We're going to explain. Also, major news out of Aurora, Colorado, the Venezuelan gang that the media fact-checked Donald Trump over. Well, guess what? Trump's proven right again. And CNN caught helping Canada combat Trump's tariff plan. This is like the definition of TDS, folks. You hate Trump so badly, you openly try helping another country beat us in balancing the trade deficit. This is wild, all caught live on air. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps out the channel. And consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates. So we're living through one of those rare moments of absolute clarity in our country. Many of us woke up to the lies years ago, but a lot of people were just tuned out, going through their day-to-day life, not realizing just how toxic politics has become. Well, 4 years ago, after Donald Trump lost the election, half the country was crushed and confused. How was it possible Joe Biden could have received more votes than any other president in American history? The man can barely form a coherent sentence. Many people just had like this sick feeling, this sick knot in the pit of their stomach that something just wasn't right. Something just felt off about what happened. So, like any patriotic American, they decided to go to the Capitol, make their voice heard, peacefully protesting the election. And we all know what happened next. Some of the protesters got rowdy, for whatever reason, ended up entering the Capitol, their Capitol, mind you, and for the crime of walking into the Capitol, the DOJ, the FBI launched the largest ever investigation in the Bureau's history, arresting thousands of Trump supporters and leading to the largest mass psyop we've ever seen. For 4 years, Democrats, with the help of legacy media, tried to convince the country that what happened on J6 was one of the worst days in American history, one of the darkest days we've ever seen, right up there with Pearl Harbor and 9/11. That Donald Trump unleashed a violent mob on the Capitol, all because he lost the election, all of which turned out to be false. It was a protest that turned into a riot. That's all. Well, something amazing is happening. Democrats are now planning to do the exact same thing that those Trump supporters did. Left-wing influencers are pushing for 11 million Americans, Democrats, to show up on January 20th to protest Donald Trump. You can't make this up. Saying if 3% of our nation's population shows up to the Capitol, Trump will have no choice but to step down. They actually believe this. This new online sensation was started by this Air Force veteran turned TikTok influencer. His name's Jerry Doran, who has this somewhat big online following of Trump haters. Each of his videos, by the way, about how awful Republicans are, how terrible Trump supporters are. Here he is organizing this massive march on Trump's inauguration. Roll the tape.
A month from then, December 20th to January 20th, the day of the inauguration, we, the people, are going to have to show up in Washington and have this guy step down. The 3% rule states that if you have 3% of a group of people's population, 3% of a particular population, if they gather en masse, they can change everything. So we have 330 million Americans. 10% of that is 33 million. And what's a third of that? 11 million. 11 million of us have to show up on Washington, D.C. on January 20th and have this guy step down. He'll see 11 million people. Talk about a crowd. He'll have a coronary and he'll have to step down. We got to do it. And we can't depend on the people out west. God bless. But for those of us here in New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, Long Island, Connecticut, right? Everybody, we got to converge on Washington. Black, white, trans, LGBTQ2, drag queens, peacefully, cohesively.
So look, I hate to burst Jerry's bubble, but that's never going to happen. It's not half the country that hates Donald Trump. It's this tiny, tiny sliver of America, and you sure as hell aren't going to rally them all to the Capitol. But here's the crazier part of the story. They aren't just doing the exact same thing that they accused Trump supporters of doing in 2020, committing insurrection, but they're turning into their own new QAnon movement. According to Jerry and his 1 million viewers, or 766,000 viewers who actually watched this, they'll only need to protest the inauguration, they say, if President Biden and the Congress doesn't invoke Executive Order 13848, which he says is in the works and will be executed on Friday, in 2 days from today, on December 20th, which he says is going to disqualify Trump from taking office. Watch this.
I want to just leave this short. It's 4 minutes. We'll do this before 5. Guys, don't forget, it's we the people, okay? We have Executive Order coming out 13848, right? It's going to be implemented. It's been out. Donald Trump helped create it. And it's going to come back to bite him in the ass, because what it does is it says how we have to proceed when we realize that there has been outside interference in our elections. There definitely has been. They're going to reveal that on the 20th of December, because 45 days from November 6th brings us to December 20th, which is 6 days from today. So this coming Friday. So have a great weekend. Do your laundry. Hang your stuff out if you can. Change the sheets to your bed. Go grocery shopping. Get everything set up. Go to church tomorrow or don't. Pray at home. Hold hands. Love the ones you're with. Be good to yourselves. And let's get our country back, right? Next week, the Friday, I have a feeling this Executive Order 13848 will be implemented. And if not...
In another story, the Venezuelan gangs wreaking havoc all over Aurora, Colorado have finally been stopped, or somewhat stopped. Aurora police have detained 14 of the suspects linked to this Venezuelan gang after they committed an armed home invasion and kidnapping, and realized the only reason Aurora police even arrested these 14 people was because the victims came forward and reported the assault. This is the same gang that took over that apartment complex that Donald Trump highlighted during the debate 3 months ago. Think about that. This could have been stopped months ago. For months, the media lying to us again, saying Trump's making the whole thing up. Aurora doesn't have this illegal migrant gang problem. No illegal migrants are taking over apartment complexes, they said. Well, they were, and they escalated to home invasion and kidnapping. Watch.
I want to break down an event that occurred last night, and I think without question it has national attention based on the circumstances of where the event actually occurred and based upon the incidences that have been in the city of Aurora in the past in and around this same location. Last night, right at about 8:45 p.m. At 1258 Dallas Street, victims, it was a male and a female, they were accosted by approximately 13 to 15 armed individuals. 13 of those were males and 3 of those were possibly females at this time is what we were thinking. They were taken to an adjoining apartment complex against their will at that same Dallas complex, and they ended up at 1268 Dallas. Again, this was the same complex, same area. The victims were held against their will. They were actually bound, both the male and the female. They were pistol whipped. They were beat. They were victimized. They were terrorized. During this entire process, some of the suspects left that apartment complex at 1268 Dallas and went over to the victim's apartment, which is located at 1258 Dallas, and actually burglarized and took over that apartment and took out items of value that belonged to our victims. And subsequently, they came back. Right around 1:50 in the morning, our victims, with communication and with courage, basically informed the suspects that they would not notify the police if they were released, and could they please be released. Our victims were subsequently released. They left at a complex right around 1:50. They went to their vehicle and they drove to a friend's house located in another area of the city of Aurora. Once at that location, the victims notified the police right at about 02:27. I think that is something that is truly amazing. These individuals that are the victims at this point, it appears that they are immigrants that came again with the Venezuelan community that was brought here.
And luckily, the victims came forward and reported this to police. It was the only reason they even did anything about it. The Biden administration, Homeland Security, has done nothing for months about this, denied it was happening, while residents in that apartment complex had to deal with these thugs coming into their apartments, taking their rent, taking other items, running roughshod over the complex owners, the landlords. This is what happens when you have an administration that's exacerbating the problem. It leads to unnecessary crime, and the mayors and governors in Colorado and other blue states are saying they won't let the Trump administration, deport these people. For example, the mayor of Denver, Colorado, just recently came out and said he's going to use local police and residents to physically block ICE from deporting any illegal migrants. He's actively protecting these gangs who are wreaking havoc. It's disgraceful. Watch.
Trump's new border czar, Tom Homan, has said that he is willing to arrest leaders like yourself for standing in the way of these policies that they want to enact. Would you be willing to go to jail for these things?
Yeah, I'm not afraid of that. And I'm also not seeking that. I think the goal is we want to be able to negotiate with reasonable people how to solve hard problems.
You would encourage people to protest?
I think we're going to look at every option. But yeah, I don't think that there are, I talked to some high school kids this week who were terrified about this. I don't think those kids are going to stand there and watch 3 of their classmates get pulled out of a history class with the other 27 stand by and do nothing. I don't think that's what Denverites or Americans would do in this context at all.
In another story, Canadians are now threatening to retaliate against Donald Trump and his tariffs, saying if Trump does slap a 25% tariff on Canada, we're going to retaliate by blocking Canadian electricity. This is the first time I've seen Canada actually angry about something, and this is a real proposal, by the way, from Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario. A premier is basically like the governor of Ontario. He's pushing Trudeau's government to do this, or the new government after Trudeau loses power soon, saying we have leverage, Canada has leverage, 1% of U.S. households are powered, receive their electricity from Canada. Now, if they do this, which I doubt they will, it would affect residents in Michigan and around the Great Lakes mostly. But here's the crazy part. While CNN's interviewing Doug Ford, hearing all of this for the first time, they actually help him go even further, informing him how he could really beat Trump in this tariff war, saying this 1% thing's not going to work. Aaron Burnett explains to him, don't just threaten electricity to 1% of Americans. You got to go bigger than that, she said. If you really want to break Trump, threaten crude imports. That would really make Trump back down, she says, as America receives 60% of all crude oil from Canada.
Tonight, Donald Trump throwing Canada into chaos after calling Canada a state and calling its prime minister Governor Justin Trudeau. Comes as Trump's nemesis in Canada. The country's deputy prime minister, Chrystia Freeland, who's also its finance minister, is gone. She abruptly resigned after clashing with Prime Minister Trudeau, saying he is not doing enough to stand up to Trump and Trump's threat of 25% tariffs on every single good that comes into the United States from Canada. Trump calls her toxic. But there is another top Canadian official now taking Trump on tonight, Ontario Premier Doug Ford. He is calling for his country to use every tool in our toolbox. A direct quote. I want to just start here with your proposal itself. What exactly does cutting off Canadian energy to the United States look like?
Well, first of all, Aaron, thanks for having me on. That's the last thing I want to do. I want to sell more electricity, more power to our U.S. friends and closest allies in the world. But that's a tool that we have in our toolbox. We power over 1.5 million homes in Michigan and companies in Michigan and New York State and Wisconsin. That's
that Americans will feel the pain if you have to go through with this. You specifically threatened to turn off the lights to 1.5 million Americans. And I say that just because if you're specifically talking about electricity coming into the U.S. from Canada, that only makes up about 1% of annual U.S. electricity consumption. That's according to the EIA here in the U.S. But, Premier, when it comes to crude oil, if you go bigger, you're looking at Canadian exports to the U.S., 60% of America's total oil imports come from Canada. So do you want to go bigger in this? If these tariffs are going to go through, should you reciprocate with tariffs, not just on electricity, but on crude oil itself?
Well, we ship down 4.3 million barrels every single day. If there was a tariff on that, that would increase gas by $1 a gallon. That wouldn't go over very well.